Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Have a great day.
This is a speaker meeting, and tonight Aaron will speak for 10 minutes and then turn the meeting over to our main speaker, Jamie, who will share her experience, strength, and hope. So now I'd like to turn the meeting over to Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm an alcoholic. I don't think I'm not a very outgoing person or somebody that likes to talk to people that much, but somehow I tend to be really long-winded when I do any kind of public speaking. So I'm going to try. So I brought notes, and we'll see how that works. I have a sponsor. He's a new sponsor because I fell out of contact with my original sponsor. I just kind of let the program and my communication with my sponsor and everything just kind of go away. And luckily I have not relapsed so far, but there were times when it was a lot more likely than it would have been had I actually stuck around. So I'm glad to be kind of back in the fold and working with a sponsor. My sobriety date is August 20th, 2011, so I've got about 4.5 years, which I never, ever thought would ever happen. I had doctors and therapists and stuff tell me while I was in college or ask me, what do you think about stopping drinking for a year? And it was not something that I had ever considered or planned to consider, and it seemed absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't figure out why anybody would do that to themselves. It didn't seem normal to not drink. But what I was doing was definitely not normal, and that became more and more clear over time. Every time I come, and like the few times that I have spoken, what comes out of my mouth is like way different than what I planned. But as I was driving here, as I was like arriving in the parking lot, I saw this gentleman that I assume was homeless, sleeping in the doorway of the church here. And one thing that is great about sobriety and working in this program is that it occurred to me to be thankful and grateful that I have a place to stay. I have concern for that gentleman. Nothing occurred to me that, I could do, there was anything that I could do for him at this moment in time. But that's just thinking that would not have happened, had I not gotten sober and spent time around here. And it also reminded me of a little anecdote from my drinking days, which was that, and not to say that my situation was probably very like his. I had a place to go, but I stayed out late with some friends in the city one time, and my friend dropped me off at the BART station, and it was like 2 or 3, so BART had just stopped running, and there happened to be a guy at the bottom of the escalator before where that gate comes down when they close the stations up, and he was down there just sleeping off. He looked like kind of the same age as me, in the same kind of had just gotten done partying and got trapped in the city, and I could have taken the 800 bus home. I might not have had money for a cab, but I could have gotten home. I could have called my friend that dropped me off there to take me home. But my thinking was, this guy is reasonably attractive, and if I would rather lay here and hope and pine and wish for him to roll over and hug me in the pit of the BART thing, in the cold street. He was wrapped up in his t-shirt because he was drunk, 20-something, having a good time. Hadn't planned to get trapped. Anyway, that seemed like a good idea to me. And I realized that that was not uncommon. That kind of feeling I really want to be close to somebody, anybody, and then doing everything I could to make myself as kind of repellent as possible by getting completely shit-faced, and then kind of not understanding why I was, alone. So there's that. That's kind of like one of the kind of middle ground. That wasn't my bottom, but just to give you a small idea of the kinds of things and the kinds of situations that I would like put myself in. I stayed there until 4:00 in the morning, and then I got my ass home. And luckily, I had a place to go. During all my drinking, I just wasn't very dependable. I held down jobs, some of them for a long time. When I was there, I was usually kind of, doing a good job. But I was not there a lot. I was late because I was really hungover. I would call in sick a lot because I was really hungover. I always wondered if like my coworkers could tell that I was, if they could smell all the booze and cigarettes on me. And I've come to the conclusion that even though none of them said anything, they must have, because I was like rolling out of bed like 15 minutes before I had to get there. If I was lucky. I mean, oftentimes it was after I was supposed to be there. Didn't have time for a shower. Might not have taken one anyway. And just kind of was, trying to kind of hang on to the job. So I would just get there probably, having spilled last night's wine all over myself. I was a wino. Still would be if I was choosing to drink these days. And I smoked cigarettes by the pack in those evenings by myself. There was a time where I had like all these friends and we would go out and get shit-faced. But I was always the one that was like the last to go to bed. I would get upset if there was no more alcohol. Nobody else really seemed to mind. But it was really big. It was a problem for me if there was nothing else to drink. But eventually it just was me drinking by myself in my apartment after work and telling myself all day at work, I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to drink tonight. But knowing that I absolutely would, because I felt like I had to. There were some times where I would get like 30 days together, but that was because on my own, just being dry, not associated with the program. But that was usually because I had had like a really bad night or I did something really, really stupid. And I was kind of like trying to punish myself and prove to myself that I didn't have a problem. But eventually I figured it out. And the kind of breaking point for me was that I lost a job. For some reason, like having a job and being able to provide for myself and take care of myself is like a big deal to me. Like I get some kind of self-esteem stuff out of it. And when I lost the ability to do that, I finally was like, okay, I lost this job because I was too drunk to get here on time. It was a cafe. And it was, I had to open the store at like 5 or 6 in the morning. And that doesn't work very well if you are finishing up drinking at 5 or 6 in the morning. I would sometimes, a few times that I drank through the entire night in my house by myself, chain smoking, being absolutely miserable, completely demoralized, just disgusted with myself, not wanting to take the next swig, but absolutely having to. I would close all the curtains and turn on all the lights because otherwise I could see the lights coming from the street or the sun coming in. And I didn't think that it was appropriate for me to be drinking at dawn. So I thought I could fool myself into thinking it was still nighttime if I closed up all the curtains and turned on the lights. I don't think it really works that well, but I kept drinking. I lost this job because I was supposed to be there to open the store. I let my coworker down that was also like coming in slightly after me to help open the store, who was like in charge of making food, and I was supposed to be the coffee guy, and he didn't know how to make coffee, but he was like, I walked in the door and he's like struggling trying to like make an espresso or whatever. And I kind of thought, well, they just won't open until I get there. I mean, I know that I should be there on time, but I just thought, well, they'll just have to open a little bit later. But I mean, the other guy was trying to be responsible and like own up to his responsibilities at the cafe and beyond, and trying to cover my slack, where I thought, well, I don't really like, I thought I was really important, I guess, because I thought they would like just wait to open, but I also thought that I didn't matter enough that it would really kind of make a difference. I don't know if that makes any sense, but anyway, so I lost that job, and I'm not shocked. Thank you. And I'm thankful because it got me in here. I haven't worked like the most rigorous program. When I first got in here, I was pretty rigorous. I'm getting back into things now. I've got a commitment that is only once a month, but I've got that. So I'm not going to stand up here and pretend that I am the model AA citizen, but I did leave a date, and it was a second date, to come here and speak. Like I could have hung out with him for, the evening, but I had made this commitment and I wasn't going to break it. So, because this is important to me, it's important to my life, and I really need to be here. So, thanks.
Hi, my name is Jamie. I'm an addict and an alcoholic. Oh. Okay, we stand up. Great. Excited about that.
Sorry. I forgot to do this to you guys.
Okay. Okay, my name is Jamie. I'm an addict and an alcoholic. Good night. Good evening, everybody. Okay, I'm going to stick to the format, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. My sobriety date is March 13th, 2014. So if all goes as planned, I will have 2 years a week from tomorrow. Thank you. Okay. It's interesting. I was getting in the car to come here tonight, and the first line of it was the song, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. The first lines are, welcome to your life, there's no turning back. And I thought that was pretty fitting, because there's certainly no turning back for me. Relapse is not an option. A friend of mine who is in my home group, I heard her say that once, and it really stuck with me. And I'm going to use that. And that's one of the things that's been really helpful for me in my program is taking what works for me and what suits me, and then giving it away. So hopefully I will perhaps say something today that resonates with you guys, and if it doesn't, then I hope you forget it before you even walk out the door. I'm nervous, and it helps me to relax a little bit if I just say that out loud. I'm nervous. I care what people think about me. As much as I wish I didn't, I totally do. This program has helped me to let go of some of that, but I still do. I'm a human being. And so there's that. But I'm going to be honest. My sponsor has helped me to learn to be rigorously honest, and that has brought me a lot of peace. So I will do my best to be honest. Okay, so I was born to 2 alcoholics, and neither one of them still to this day identify as such. They're both pretty much in denial, as I was too. I had no idea that I was an alcoholic. My dad is still practicing. My mom almost died of this disease when I was a little girl. I've actually saved both of my parents' lives at different times. And I realized that in sobriety. I was like, oh, that happened. That's probably not something that, I don't know, I'll speak for myself. That's what happened to me. I don't know if that happened to you. But it had a pretty big effect on me, seeing my mom, have grand mal seizures and being rushed to the hospital, calling the ambulance to have my mom rushed to the hospital. I was scared. I was scared out of my mind. I think I came out of the womb, just petrified. My mom's pretty scared about a lot of things, and so that's sort of how she cooked me, was feeling scared. And so that's how it all started. But my parents, they're great people, and they love me very much, and they've been incredibly supportive of me. I'm learning through them in a whole new way. I'm seeing how they don't know how to take care, how they didn't know how to take care of themselves, and they didn't know how to have feelings. And so I'm now getting the opportunity to learn that. and to be sober and actually feel my feelings. So I'm grateful for that. So anyway, my parents, they had a lot of parties. They were really social people. They had a lot of fun. My parents used to take me to concerts a lot, giving me sips of beer. And I believe I was an alcoholic from the get-go. Let's see. So lots of parties, putting on a show. That was very normal for me too. I learned to strive for perfection, which I think is a lot of reason why I drank, because I wanted to, there's a lot of reasons why I drank. Getting a little sidetracked. Striving for perfection. Okay, so I started drinking in 8th grade, 8th, 9th grade, had my first drunk. My parents had a New Year's Eve party. I thought it would be a good idea to drink all of the leftover glasses of champagne. I'm a small person. That didn't go very well. So I ended up, of course, running down the hallway and puking. And then I would just, fix myself and walk right back out there and say goodbye to everybody and just smile and act like everything was fine. I ended up being so sick that night and just throwing up over the side of my bed. I couldn't even get out of bed. And it wasn't ever spoken of. It was kind of funny, actually. And I didn't really think anything of it. It was just like, okay, just get it together and go on with your life. And that's kind of how my drinking was. There was a lot of throwing up, some blacking out, more blacking out later on. But then I was introduced to drugs, so it was just more drinking. So I made it through high school. I consider myself sort of a classic overachiever. I just was really busy, and that helped me to feel comfortable. And I was captain of my sports and president of student council, and from the outside it looked like everything was just peachy. But I never felt like I belonged anywhere. I didn't feel like I fit in with anybody. So I just kept being busy, and I would drink on the weekends, and I do my best to, be a good girl. I moved, let's see here. So I ended up going to college in South Carolina, and actually in Charleston, the bars didn't close when I was in college, so you could stay out all night long if you wanted to. And I did quite often. And, I can remember this gross dive bar, just going into the bathroom and laying down on the floor because I was so drunk and I just couldn't move. And there are lots of memories of me feeling so, it looked like I was okay, like I was really good at acting like I was okay, but then I would scurry off and pass out somewhere. Luckily, I was found multiple times and people walked me home or took care of me. There's been a couple times. One time I was backstage somewhere. I don't even know how I got backstage. Totally blacked out. But I could remember, I could hear what was going on, but I couldn't communicate or actually engage with anybody. Once again, someone took care of me. And that was what happened to me a lot too, to my detriment. There were definitely things that went wrong, but it was behind closed doors, or there was always someone there to kind of pick up the pieces. So I didn't get in much trouble. I didn't have any DUIs, and nobody really got hurt because I was able to really cover it up really well. And everybody else around me seemed to be doing what I was doing, so it just felt like I needed to do it better. I needed to do more. I needed to try harder. I needed to just try more, do more, strive. And that just led to and escalated my drinking. I went to college, same thing, more drugs, more drinking. But on the outside, I was doing great. I had some trouble meeting friends, connecting. I had no concept of really how to have an intimate relationship. I mean, I knew how to have sex. I'm not talking about that, but actually how to connect with human beings. And so I didn't have a lot of friends, and then I ended up joining a sorority. And I can remember actually on the last day, my senior year, towards the end of college, obviously, it was the last day, surrounded by all of these women celebrating, so happy, everything's great, you know. And I just went into my room and just closed the door and started to cry, you know. And I didn't have any concept. So that's part of the reason why I think I drank, because it just made me feel like I was a part of, you know, and it was easy and it was fun and it turned my brain off. I'm a thinker, and I think and think and think and think. And that's why I go to meetings every day now. And actually this week I didn't go to a meeting 2 days in a row, and I was batshit crazy. And it reminded me, it's like my disease wants to tell me like, oh, you got this, you know, go do some more yoga or whatever. That's great. It's helpful. It is helpful, but it's not a meeting and it's not Alcoholics Anonymous. So moving right along, I made it through college, moved out to Colorado, wanted to do something different. And I grew up on the East Coast. And I really started to party. That's where cocaine came into the picture. And I got back together with my high school sweetheart. That's where it really shifted for me. I was just thinking about this today, and I just feel like I was aimless. You know, I knew I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. I had always been on like the beaten path and was doing the internships and like I said, like, you know, doing the good girl things. But I was leading this double life. And so when I went to Colorado, it allowed me the opportunity to just have a good time. And hangovers at 10,000 feet are awful. But it didn't stop me, you know? I mean, I would still just get hammered and be incredibly hungover and just do it again. But I'd be able to go to work and I could go skiing. And, you know, everybody else was doing it. And I was young enough that I could bounce back. So then, you know, I got back together with my high school sweetheart, and, you know, his dad was actually in the program. And when we first started dating in high school, I could remember going to see Blind Melon and lying to him because I was smoking pot and I was drinking, but I learned from my mom basically, like, don't tell your father, different things. And actually a lot of times for the don't tell your father, it was like we'd go shopping or something. And so I just want to bring that in because I feel like I'm grateful for the fact that I had everything that I needed, and I had a lot of things I wanted, but I never felt that I deserved any of it at all. So I learned to lie, and I started doing that in that relationship of like hiding what I was actually hiding, everything really. And then so later on, Mike graduated into drugs and drinking. So we got back together, and he was selling drugs, and, you know, he was giving me what I needed. And we partied hard, you know, and we were surrounded by a lot of people that were doing the same thing. So we felt like it was okay. There were more consequences around then. I was in graduate school. I almost OD'd twice. I almost drowned in the bathtub because I took an Ambien after a night of drinking. And he came upstairs just as I slipped into the water. And so there were like lots of those little things. There was a time when we went out in Aspen, Colorado, and we went to see some music again, and I decided that I wanted to stay out, and he was going to go back. So he just left me at the bar, no big deal. And of course, I find everything that I need, and it's next thing you know, it's like 6 a.m. I'm at some stranger's house, and I'm not answering my phone, and my boyfriend, he thinks I'm dead or is really mad. So I knew something was wrong at that point, and that's when I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I went back down to Boulder, and I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I wasn't ready. There was way too much love in the room, and I had no idea how to talk to these people who were trying to be nice to me, and I didn't want that. I did not want what you guys had at all. So I ended up then graduating graduate school and started to work in live music, which is very interesting place to work if you have a drug and alcohol problem. You can't really do both. I tried to do both. I really did, but I started to get sloppy. And at that point where I felt like this was my heart, this is the direction I wanted to be moving in some capacity with music, I knew that I had to kind of hit the brakes a little bit, but I had no fucking idea how to do it. And that's when I started to notice. Like, I would get so restless, irritable, and discontent if there was, like, by chance I couldn't drink that night, or I had to drive or something. And I was crazy if I couldn't drink. So that didn't happen that much. And I started to try to do the other things, dance around the issue, go to yoga, eat better, I don't know, go to the gym, go for a run. And I never thought that it was the drinking. I had no idea that was why everything was falling apart in my life. It took me more time. I had more research to do, I guess. So I kept going at that rate, trying to make changes. I had no support system to really help me. And I'm a total alcoholic. So I wanted to blame everybody else for everything that was going on. I was living in a ton of delusion. And I was really unhappy and really angry. So moving right along, I was able to get out of my, by the grace of God, I was able to leave the marriage. It was quite codependent. I met him when I was 9 years old. So leaving that relationship was like ripping off my arm. It was really hard to do. And I definitely caused a lot of wreckage. And that was my first amends was to my ex-husband. But I left. I got out. I knew that it was in my best interest and I was going to die. And I feel very strongly that I would have died if I stayed in that marriage. So I was able to get out. I knew I wanted to move to California. I wasn't sure how I was going to get there. I went and stayed with my parents for a little while. And that was interesting, being in my 30s and living with my parents who are both addicts and alcoholics. My mom's not really using, but it was intense. And it was also kind of beautiful to be an adult, kind of, and living with my parents and getting to see them as human beings, I'm grateful for that too. And so I made my way out to California and started to try to really do it on my own. Of course, there was a guy involved and that helped me. I'm like, oh, well, he's not drinking right now. Maybe I should try. So grateful again, a teacher for me of leading me in the direction. I'm kind of fixating on you because you're kind of cute, but really you're just here to show me something that I need to learn. So I tried to do it on my own. I'd make it like 2 weeks and then I drink like this much Maker's Mark. It's neat. At this point, I'm basically drinking just booze. Neat. I also enjoyed wine as well. I drank everything. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could drink anything and a lot of it. And so I had that experience and I can let it go now. So I got here, couldn't do it on my own. I kept trying. And then I ended up just basically feeling really depressed and drinking by myself a lot. And, but I did manage to get this amazing job. This is the job that I thought I'd worked so hard for. And I was making my way back now into music and it was with this nonprofit organization. I felt I'd worked so hard to get this job. And meanwhile, throughout the years, there were so many jobs that I applied for. And I would go out and get wasted the night before. I can't tell you how many times I would do that. I mean, it was ridiculous. I would get right up to the spot, like right there, and just throw it all away. I just couldn't not do that. So I got this job, and I was really excited, but I was inner turmoil, like, it was a perfect storm. Like all kinds of stuff was starting to come up for me. Like it was as if the steps were like coming towards me and trying to tell me like, come on girl, you got to make some changes. But I was not ready to do it. So I had to be forced to do it. I was given the gift of desperation when I was on this, so I was working this event. We were on it was a brand new cruise ship, 5,000 people. It's a floating music festival. And people are partying like it's their job. And for some people, it kind of was. It wasn't mine. I had a job, and it wasn't a party. But I remember New Year's Eve. This was like 3 days before I was leaving to set sail, and I had my little moment with myself. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a year off, and I'm not going to drink. And so, sure enough, I get on the boat, and I'm telling them, like, yeah, I'm not going to drink. Oh, why is that? I'm like, well, I'm just trying to take care of myself. And I don't know what I said. I didn't even know what was going on, but I was just like, I just can't drink because I'm going to fuck this up. So again, one thing leads to another, to another, to another. And basically, I fell apart. I mean, my heart shattered. This situation with, we were doing this benefit for these young girls in Jamaica and they hadn't eaten and, oh, that's what it was. They put me on camera. And I asked the girls if they wanted to be in the scene, and I couldn't couldn't say a word because I was so broken up about what we were doing. And I'm missing a key point. The night before, I actually ran into a friend of mine and ended up doing a line of cocaine and drinking one drink. But I felt one drink of scotch, and I felt so disgustingly guilty about that because I knew it was like opening up this can of worms and that I was going downhill and I didn't know what to do. So I drank a little bit. So needless to say, that's where it started to really go downhill, and I started to feel like shit about myself. And because underneath my alcoholism is just like this gaping hole of I don't deserve and that I'm not enough. And so that was hitting on that quite nicely. So I started drinking. I ended up drinking throughout the next day, which I thought was my day off. And we ended up, like, the weather was crazy, and we didn't dock because I thought I was going to be able to get off the boat and just, like, get some air and feel the earth, you know? And that didn't happen. The weather changed, and we were still at sea, and I wasn't really off. So I went and showered up and got all pretty like I did back for the rest of my life. Like, I'll just pretend it's okay. And I went up to our headquarters meeting, and it turns out that's what I was thinking of when I put this on. They're like, oh, great, Jamie's here. And they, like, sit me down, and they start miking me up. And they've got, like, the cameras, and they break out these questions that I had written. And they start asking me these questions on camera. And I'm like, I did this to myself. I'm sitting there thinking this. I'm like, I can do it. And I couldn't do it. I mean, my brain was like this. It was like I kept trying to answer, and I'm looking in the camera like I'm throwing my life away. And, I couldn't do it. I got up and, I told them, like, yeah, I can't do this. I'm sorry. And needless to say, I was fired a couple weeks later on Martin Luther King's birthday. And, that's what brought me in here was I felt like I felt like a piece of shit. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. I felt like everything I did was wrong. I couldn't get anywhere. I had nothing to show for myself. And I felt just really bad. And I had a conversation with my, I have a life coach who's actually in the program. She didn't tell me that she was in the program, but I knew she didn't drink. And she's very Socratic. Like, she doesn't tell me answers, or she asks me questions and helps me to get to my own answers. And so she did that one day. I was sitting out in Berkeley, and she said, do you really think you're doing no harm by drinking? And it was the voice of God. It just, in that moment, it was ready to land. I was ready. It wasn't working anymore. And here I am. And I said, yep, you're right. It is doing harm. I'm harming myself. And so I went and drank for a couple more days. And, I passed the sushi restaurant in Berkeley often. I'm like, oh yeah, that was the place. So I drank for a couple days, and I went to a meeting. And it was in Berkeley at 8:00 Friday, newcomers meeting. I announced that I was a newcomer. And recovery has been like peeling my skin off. Besides like announcing like when I had been here for a few days, and actually I wanted to say a special hello to Jeff, Kevin, Brendan, Tom, Soletta, and I'm sorry for a few of you other people who are new that I missed your names, but I'm incredibly grateful for that you're here, because I couldn't do this alone. So every single one of you, it's very important to my sobriety and to everybody else in this room. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I couldn't speak besides saying my name. I was willing to do that, but I would sit in those chairs. I was fucking so angry that I had to be here. I was so angry that I had to be here. And underneath the anger, I was so sad. I was so sad at the things, I'm sharing little bits and pieces with you guys. We all have a story. I'm just was so sad about things that had happened or hadn't happened. And angry and just like a fucking brat, and I couldn't talk. I would sit here and I could feel it was like I was screaming and crying inside of my skin, but I couldn't say a word. I was so scared of you guys. And like I said, I had no idea actually how to have a human conversation and to look people in the eyes. I was so afraid to look people in the eyes. They were going to see that I was worth nothing. They were going to see that I had nothing to give, that, haha, joke's on you, you're not allowed to be here. You guys were going to kick me out in some way. I was doing something wrong. But then finally I was able to start. I said something once and it just started. It was like a muscle. So for anybody in this room that's having a hard time speaking up, my experience has been that the more I do it, the easier it gets. And the more I do it, the more I recognize that I'm just like everybody else in this room, no matter what I look like or you look like, we all want the same things. And it feels really good when I just raise my hand now and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to say, but I know I need to say something. My sponsors told me to share, and then I tell my sponsee to share, and it works because it's not even about me anymore. And that's what Leonard Cohen says, the less of me there is, the happier I become. And I recognize that standing here today, this isn't about me. Hopefully, something that happened in my life, reminds you of something else, or maybe it shifts our perspectives hearing each other a little bit. I know that it's just been such a gift to hear you guys. So yeah, so speaking up has been intense for me, and I'm okay. I'm okay. She's okay. Meetings. They're hard. They were they were hard at first. I didn't want to talk. And, but my sponsor. So here I am early on in the program, and I was driving for Lyft for a little bit. Oh my God. So my first couple of jobs in sobriety was I was driving for Lyft, and then I started working with this catering company, which I'm still working for. I can't believe they didn't hire me, going through all the craziness of learning to not be completely nuts, in sobriety. And, literally at one point I was driving down the street in San Francisco and got out of the car and went and just touched a tree because I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. It's crazy. So I did that. So, I'm driving for Lyft and kind of I can't drink anymore. And sure enough, I picked up this couple that was in the program. And so we just started talking, and I decided to be honest with her and about some changes I've made, and I'm not drinking anymore. She's like, really? And it turns out her and the guy were texting back and forth while I was driving. They're like, I think she might be in the program. Do you think she is? And so anyway, she gave me every possible way I could get in touch with her. Here's my social security number, everything. Call me please. This girl needs help. So I did. I called her, and her name's Julie, and what a gift. And she introduced me to her sponsor, right? She was like, I can give you my sponsor's number. Her sponsor called me right away, Candy. And I met Candy at a meeting, and she came up to me in Oakland. I forget which meeting it was, but I remember where it was. But anyway, she came up to me and she's like, are you Jamie? And I was like, yeah, how'd you know? She's like, you look like the most uncomfortable new person in the room. I'm like, thanks. And then anyway, I went to the A Vision for You meeting, and that meeting scared the heck out of me. I was like, oh my God. And I remember sitting there, and my sponsor, she was the speaker. And it was completely my higher power that lifted me up and was like, go to her. And delivered me to her. And one of the things she said at the end of her share, which really resonated, was, I'm not broken anymore. And I'm like, I want what that girl has, because I feel completely broken and I have no idea how to change that. And I wanted to change it so badly. I wanted to change everything. That's why I was always drinking or being busy or getting high. And now today I don't feel that way anymore. So, So one of the things that I do want to stress too that's helped me in recovery immensely is that relationship with my sponsor. Because I'm really good at hiding from myself. Really good at it. Excellent. Like a ninja. Just decided to say that. That was totally my higher power. It wasn't me. So my sponsor, I have to talk to her. She just moved back to the city, and I'm noticing, now I'm calling it self-care, but I'm isolating, and self-care is incredibly important, but there's a difference. There's a difference between self-care and isolating, okay? And when I'm with her, it's similar. She just can zero right in and ask me the questions. Like, I'll start telling her, like, well, then this happened, and da-da-da. And she's like, okay, can I stop you right now? And then she'll be like, did you write an inventory? And then she'll just ask me very, very simple, basic questions that my alcoholic mind is going all the way over here, that I'm losing track of what's really happening. So my sponsor I meet with, like I said, it's been a little off the last couple of weeks, and I'm really seeing how it's my responsibility and how I want to make more of an effort, because we had been on track for the last couple of years. And now I have a sponsee too. And that relationship is rocking my world. This woman is 7 months sober, just been diagnosed with breast cancer, mother of 4, like 3-year-old foster child, like business. And she's just like, she's doing it. But she's a mirror for me too. And I see so much of myself in her. And it's such a gift to be able to work with another alcoholic. You know, I was really afraid that I didn't have anything to offer. I wasn't going to know what to say. I was going to screw it up. It's not about that. It's like it's just like being a carrier of this message and sharing what's going on for me and what worked for me. So I'm so grateful for that aspect too. You know, and I pray every day. I'm in a constant contact with my higher power. God was not in my life. Like, I was raised Catholic, but it wasn't, I never really connected. It was actually through music where I felt a sense of a higher power. And it's now today that I do. I have a higher power, and that's what keeps me sober, because I don't want to fuck that up. Because when I'm driving, and like I said, I don't go to a meeting for a day. I'm like trying to drive again. Things are going totally haywire. And when I can stay in line with my higher power and ask straight up, like recently, the two, besides like the serenity prayer or third step prayer, which I generally say both of those in the morning, right as soon as I wake up, because my mind is off and running, which is why the 6:15 a.m. is basically my, my home group. I've just been saying, please send me miracles, so I can shift what I'm thinking into reality. And how can I be of service? That's what I really want to end with tonight, is service. And how my sponsor always says, the solution to your problems has nothing to do, is that what it is? The solution has nothing to do with your problems. You know, and being of service makes me feel better. It brings me peace, and it allows me to be in action. This is a program of action. The steps, all the different tools and spiritual, gigantic, massive alcoholic toolbox that I have, that's all worthless without, I believe, that's a major statement, but yeah, without the 12 steps, I wouldn't be here today, and I think that this program really works. So I hope that I shared my experience, strength, and hope with you tonight, and something possibly resonated, and that's it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.